Welcome everyone. This is the real A-Town, and Konami kind of threw us a curveball just the other day. Well, it was actually today as of recording this video. We're not gonna get a ban list till potentially after Worlds, which means that we're not getting the update until September. And honestly, this is what I expected. There was a lot of speculation that Konami would bring a list right before the NAWCQ, and that to me didn't really make any sense because Duelist Advance came out during the same week, and I think it was clear that they wanted to see how the meta shifted with it. Additionally, within the same month's time frame, we were gonna get Justice Hunters, which releases this week, I believe, and that presents a big opportunity for people to expand the meta. So not only will we get 3 new decks that are going to be very competitively viable, I think Konami has done a much better job in releasing deck builder sets where every deck ends up becoming pretty viable, right? Like there was a failure a few years ago with like the Drytron set where Light Twin also came out, but like that deck wasn't really very good. But ever since then, decks like Centurion that came out in deck builder sets ended up being really good. The set with Rescue Ace and Pearly and Mekonko, all of those decks ended up becoming competitively viable. And then, you know, recently, for the deck builder set of last year, we had Ryzeal, Malice, and I mean, Ryugi is not that good, but it can put out some impressive boards. So they've been doing a really good job in releasing competitively viable decks in every single deck builder set since I would say 2023. That being said, what can we see from the future formats? Well, we would like to have a competitively viable and a very meaningful ban list, you know, upcoming, since they're going to tread the waters and see, you know, what can stay and what cannot. So this is what solutions or some suggestions that I am looking into, and this is based on the top 64 breakdown of the recent NAWCQ here in North America, where we still see a vast majority of the popular decks being both Malice and Mitsurugi. In fact, Malice Mitsurugi ended up taking more than half of the competitive spots. And I don't know how Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro ended up establishing, you know, the Mitsurugi variants. Because, you know, as you can see here, there was also Orcus Mitsurugi, 3 of them being in Top Cut, 2 of them being Fiendsmiths apparently. I don't know why they have only 4. But yeah, you can see that Mitsurugi is still vastly popular. And so is Malice. Now, there was other people that tried with Vanquish Soul and a few others, but we know what is going to be the most represented and what's going to be good in the near future if we don't get a hit in the ban list soon. So here are some of the suggestions that we could look over and, you know, discuss as a community what is the actual best way to hit things currently on the ban list. So we're going to start with Ryzeal. There is a lot of people who want this deck gone, and for good reason. It's been pretty strong since its release, and clearly the consistency hits alone didn't really do enough, because we saw Mitsurugi, Onamat, Heraldic being packages that you could put into the deck to keep it consistent, because you only need 2 level 4s to make a duo drive, right? Now, because of the continued consistency of the deck, there is a valid reason to hit it, but how can you hit this deck perfectly, right? My suggestion was to add another consistency hit to the deck, which is putting X Ryzeal to 1, which limits some of their board breaking capabilities going second, and also banning Cross, which removes their grind game completely. Because if I'm just facing down a detonator and a duo drive and nothing else, I feel pretty confident with just an impermanence wholeheartedly. But you already know that with the amount of engines that exist, whether they be onomatopoeia or whether it be heraldic, whether it be Mitsu, there's way too many ways for the deck to still put out an impressive board that feels really hard to play against. So a lot of people suggested hitting the detonator. But you can also add layered hits to affect Ryzeal so that their boards doesn't get too crazy. For instance, you can hit Protoss or Banshee. That way you prevent the opponent from being able to, get access to the floodgates, right? And no one wants to play against Escatos or Protoss, right? This one's a little bit trickier to get to, but this one, being able to just banish different attributes, super easy in the deck. However, if they're not gonna ban Protoss or Escatos, then they should hit Necroflame Banshee and ban it on the list. Additionally, if you want to prevent them from being able to mix in with Mitsurugi, you need to remove the enabler for it, or the bridge to it, and that would be King of the Feral Imps. Now I love this card, and I would hate to see it go, just like I hate seeing Abyss Dweller go. But we recognize that any 2 level 4s can get you Duo Drive or Feral Imps, and they both become +1s no matter what. So, these consistency hits may need to be played and put into the ban list to prevent Ryzeal from becoming just a simple boss monster deck to a boss monster deck that also has layered interactions with other, forms of destructions and disruptions, right? Because this alone outs Malice, right? You just call Dark, boom. This alone can out the Mitsurugi portion of the Ryzeal deck, boom. So it becomes really hard to play against and not very fun. Now for Mitsurugi themselves, I love this deck way too much to think that this deck should be hit, because it reminds me of like a Fire King deck, right? Where my interruptions are all from the main deck, and honestly, it doesn't warrant it to be hit unless it's such a dominating deck. But we do know that this is a dominating deck, because you can't just play this with itself or with Ryzeal, but you can also play it with Orcust. And the reason you do is because you can bridge into your Orcust engine with Zombie Vampire, right? And so having the ability to put out 2 level 8s on the board easily, and then going into your Orcust stuff, ends up putting a way better end board than you could have had just on the Mitsurugi package alone. So what do you hit with this deck? Do you hit the ritual and make it harder for them to access their ritual summoning? Well, they also have cards like, Preparations of Rites that can help them get Mitsurugi Mirror, and it ends up being really destructive and really potent to break boards and being able to establish your own. So maybe you hit the consistency. So do you hit Prayers to 1? Do you hit Habakiri to 1? This one I'm not entirely too sure. Preferably, I would rather the deck not get hit and just have Feral Imps banned, because the Mitsurugi pure deck doesn't need Feral Imps. However, it's still really strong, and if we want to move away from Mitsurugi from being in the next Justice Hunters meta, there would have to be some consistency hits to the deck to make it unappealing, unless you are just someone that is a very big fan of Mitsurugi. Now Malice. Malice is a deck that I actually came to enjoy quite a bit because it got released in Master Duel, and right now it is the best deck, right? However, that doesn't mean that my opinion on the deck changed. I still think that this deck is relatively powerful, and even though the OCG had cards like Appaloosa and Link Decoder, that doesn't mean that the TCG has no way to make this deck work. As you can see, it took a vast majority of top cut, and we saw Aditya take it all the way to the finals. Not only Aditya, but we also saw Julian Kahn in top 4 with the deck, right? And it was the best overall performing deck since Top Cut because other decks ended up getting knocked out left and right. So how do you hit Malice? Well, you can hit March Hare, right? That removes their searchable quote-unquote bestial monster, but you probably actually just hit MTP07 because it removes the searchability and access of March Hare when you don't see it, and it also prevents you from getting hit with the, banish on field effect. I kind of like that effect though. I like it when the deck ends up having disruptions like that. That's why I'm a big fan of Hard Crypter being unlimited still, right? So you probably hit White Binder. The deck has shown to still be able to combo off and do a lot of good things without the White Binder. You just need to play it a bit more smart, right? And the reason why you would hit White Binder is because, graveyard manipulation. I think that kind of effect on a Link 3 that's easily accessible is a bit too strong, and you probably need to remove it in order to balance the game out a little bit. So in my perfect ban list, I probably put White Binder to 0 and like March Hare to 1 or something. You don't even have to hit March Hare, but that's what I would do. Now, if we're talking about something that's truly oppressive, we need to talk about Mermails, right? This deck cannot really be let go off the ban list and live for another format. Now, that doesn't mean that the deck is actually like, putting out great numbers, because as you can see, there was only 2 on Top Cut, right? Which shows that the deck is a lot more fragile and a lot more inconsistent than, you would like it to be. However, as someone that's played Mermails since they released in the TCG back in like late 2012, early 2013, they have been some of my favorite decks to play since then. Mono Mermail, Mermail with Neptibus when it first came out, Crystron Mermail, and then, recently, its current iteration. But let's be real. When you face a Mermail opponent and you don't have anything to disrupt them, or maybe you have one hand trap like a Nibiru, it sucks that they get to combo off, remove the interruption in your hand through a searchable monster, by the way, and then rip 2 other cards in order to establish their barrier statue amongst other interruptions. And then, the Link 3 Neptibus makes the barrier statue untargetable. You do not deserve to combo, prevent me from playing the game, and remove my forms of interruption and get hand knowledge, right? That is way too strong. Additionally, ripping cards with cards like Mulling Glacia or even Trish, right? Getting 3 cards removed like that absolutely sucks. So I think we need to ban cards like Minstrel and the Barrier Statue. If you're not going to ban Barrier Statue, you need to ban Prima Donna, because that's the card that enables it. But that's not the only way, right? Because if you hard draw this card, you can normal summon it if you want, or if you discard it for a water monster's effect, you can always summon it back with the rank 7 trait. So yeah, this card has to go, and especially Minstrel. Honestly, I don't really care if Fiendsmith stays in the format, but I also know that it's been way over a year, right? Is this a new Sky Striker? Are they never gonna hit this deck? Look, to be fair, I do think that overall the engine is fine, but I want people to move away from Fiendsmith, and I don't want to see this in Yummy because it's just gonna be annoying to deal with. So what I propose is Hit Moon of the Closed Heaven. Requiem can stay. I think if you want to get access to the Fiendsmith line, you need to just basically start with Engraver, Tract, or Sanct, right? Being able to just use 2 bodies to get into Moon of the Closed Heaven, honestly, I just don't, think that should stay into the game. I think that the deck should get hit in some way, shape, or form, or rather the engine. And I think this is the right way to do it. Move away from being able to use 2 bodies to get access to the Fiendsmith line, and leave everything as is. You know, you better hard draw your Fiendsmith engine if you want to use it. Next, Paradise Smasher. Jeff Jones had a really good take on you know, on Twitter here, and I'll see if I can go ahead and grab that tweet. There we go. So we all hate floodgates, right? I just yapped about Barrier Statue, Protoss, Escatos, all types of floodgates. It could be Macrocosmos, there can be only one, etc. But Jeff Jones actually had a positive view on this and said, look, people are probably mad about this, but I'm happy with it because maybe Konami can ban Paradise Smashers. I'll put a clip here in front of Paradise Smashers in action in a DB Grinder video. And it's actually kind of insane how high of an odds you have to be able to essentially turn skip your opponent. Now, it's not Shockmaster, but you practically might as well call it that. It says, once per turn during your main phase 1, and this is super accessible in Vanquish Soul K9, right? In turn 1, by the way. You can attach 2 materials from this card. Each player rolls a 6-sided die twice. So, you know, you roll 2 dice. The player with the higher total cannot activate monster effects or declare an attack until the end of the next turn. And then also, once per turn, if either player rolls a 6-sided die, or dice, right? While this card has a material, you can treat one of the results as 7. Meaning that you have a very high likelihood with 3 materials to prevent your monster on turn 1 to stop playing the game, right? And when this goes into effect in a K9 Vanquish Soul deck, what ends up happening is you can play your Vanquish Soul K9 turn 1, right? If you start first, stop your opponent from being able to interact with you, and the next turn on their turn, you can go ahead and just play on their turn again with Holy Sue, Raisin, etc. And they can't stop you. Now, sure, they can go ahead and use cards like Talents or Thrust, but DB Grinder said it best. You don't have a battle phase and you can't use monster effects, so you can't make work of, you know, being able to use either of those cards. So, you know, Paradise Smasher should leave, and additionally, so should Mjolnir. And I'll explain why. So, this card, along with, let's see, what's her name? I know she's a monster, Xyz, rank 5, and she's a dark. Where is she? There we go. Imperial Princess Quinnery is basically a monster reborn, but from either grave to either field. And this matters with Mjolnir for one important reason. And so, if you get to summon this on your opponent's field during your turn, this mandatory effect will activate, and it reads, target 1 artifact monster in your graveyard. Special summon it in defense position. Also, you cannot special summon monsters until the end of the next turn except artifact monsters, right? Why does this matter? It's not like I, as the opponent, play any artifact monsters in my deck. What am I like, you know, in 2014 we're playing hat format? Well, this actually doesn't matter, right? And people may say, oh, it's because people play Lancia. No. Get all those thoughts out of your mind. Mjolnir is a mandatory effect. You can think of it as a card like Dandelion. When Dandelion gets sent to the graveyard, even if a card like Fossil Dyna or, you know, something like a Vanity's Emptiness is on the field, this card will still trigger. And that matters because mandatory effects occur no matter the instance, such as Sangan versus Droll and Lockbird, right? Even when Sangan leaves the field and goes to the graveyard, if Droll is in effect, Sangan still activates. Now, it will not add, but it still triggers, right? Because it doesn't give you an option to not activate it. It's the same thing with Neptavis. Neptavis, if it's, you know, sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster effect, it doesn't matter if there's no Atlantean in the graveyard other than itself. It will still trigger to special summon an Atlantean monster from the graveyard. So why does this matter with Mjolnir? this conjunction here, where is it? Also, there you go. Even though you don't have a artifact monster in the graveyard, it still triggers to target an artifact monster in the graveyard, and then it will resolve as much as possible. Special summon it in defense mode. Also, you cannot special summon monsters until the end of your next turn, except for artifact monsters. That is a floodgate effect, right? This is Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, but like for one additional turn. And the reason why this matters is because you don't need a target for this effect to activate. So it won't just fizzle because you can't pay the cost. Like, yes, this technically is a cost, but that's irrelevant. This is a mandatory effect. So on resolution, yeah, it won't special summon a artifact monster, but also you can't special summon anything but artifact monsters until the end of your next turn. And that is very unfortunate because it adds another floodgate that the K9 Vanquisher deck can add, or even the pure K9 deck, to your opponent so that they can play. And so I think that if we see those floodgates go into effect and ruin people's day, just like Jeff Jones is wanting a Dice Smasher ban, I also want a Mjolnir ban, because even if I'm playing the same deck, I'm playing a mirror match, if I get hit with Mjolnir, I can't do shit for my turn. Even if I end up drawing into a Stake Your Soul or an Izuna, anything, it does not matter. I cannot play. And then finally, the last two cards that I would like to be off the ban list: Glow-a-Bulb and Dandelion. The Black Rose deck is going to have new support. And I call it the Black Rose deck, but it's just like the rose cards, you know. Well, yes, the cards can be made into a deck in of itself in this day and age. We know that those cards were used in the base deck back 4 or some years ago, right? With Eldritch and the Black Rose cards. I forgot exactly what all was in it. I think Dogmatica, whatever. You know, the cards alone now are actually, with the support, able to combo really well and set up a big old end board. Now in the OCG, they have cards like Baron, which adds to their end board, but Konami did recently showcase this, and at first I thought this doesn't matter. They're not gonna unban Glow-a-Bulb. But with the new Garden Rose support, they might actually get this card off, and maybe even Dandelion. And I hope so, because it'd be really fun to play with the new Black Rose cards and have fun with these two at the same time. But only time will tell, because I could also just see Konami not wanting to do it. However, Link Kuriboh is banned and stuff like that, so like maybe, but we'll have to see. That is just a part of my wish list. For that reason, I am fine with Konami taking a bit longer to put up a ban list. And honestly, I think this is also a decision made because of a supposed ban list leak that came out. Now, I'm not going to show it on screen because, you know, I'd be banned from Konami, and I actually want to keep attending events. But if you are aware of the leak, especially if you watch the Cali Effect video, just know that things are subject to change, and you shouldn't just believe people online because they have a credible source. But also, you know, this is going to give us a chance to see how not only the current top decks will fare in the new meta, but how the newer ones are going to fare as well, and make changes accordingly so that we don't end up in a, you know, in a messed up format, right? So it's fine. We get to play with all these decks at full power, the new ones, and hopefully we can make adjustments on what should be hit as we go. So, you know, if you enjoyed this video, thank you guys for watching. Absolutely. I appreciate all the support, and go ahead and put your thoughts down below in the comment section to see what you would like to see hit, right? Personally, I hope they don't take too long after Worlds to put out a ban list, but hopefully it's right after the finals. So, all right, that'll be it. You know, I'm really excited to see what else we can find, because seeing an end board like this is kind of cool, right? So, thank you guys for watching. Peace. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.